Okay. Well, welcome to this week's episode. This week, we are talking about web technology with John Chvatal. He's our web team lead and keeps us up to speed on everything. And we'll just go around the room and make introductions, and I'll turn it over to John. I know you've got many fascinating things to talk about. So I'm Paula Williams with ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
I'm also with ABCI, John Williams, and I do the back office stuff such as security for digits and CPA kind of stuff. And just to comment with respect to web technology, the very first website I did was for a company that I was a consultant for, and I did it all in Notepad because none of the high-end languages were available at the time. It was quite interesting.
And I'm Gene Clow, and I'm owner of British Circle Aircraft.
I'm John Chvatal, as Paula introduced me, with Trinity Aviation Solutions. I build websites for aviation companies.
And you don't use Notepad.
That's right.
It's been a while. There are a few better technologies on the market nowadays. So, yeah, John, did you want to just take it from here, or else I have a couple of ideas if we run out. So there's a few things I'd like to.
I'll let you guide the conversation, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. That sounds great. I love guiding conversations. Actually, I was just reading an article in Forbes, about the impact of web technology on marketing, 5 things that, their typical Forbes article format. And, some of the things that they were talking about really impact our clients, like, life after cookies. And this is something that you and I have talked about, and I'm kind of riding the Google wave until it either peters out or until they come up with another idea, because I think that's too big to fail. And I know you have a different opinion on that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Depending upon what the client needs, if they're a smaller client and they're not going to be doing digital advertising, have no intention, then a privacy respecting analytics program may be a good fit for them. I use Plausible by default with my clients. It's a paid analytics platform. It's easy for them to see, all their analytics. I give a link to them that they can sign in and see all their analytics, and a very simple to understand dashboard. One of the downfalls of Google Analytics is it's very hard to interpret,
right?
For people that don't even do it day in, day out. And even for people that, like me, it's sometimes overwhelming. You almost have to have a master's degree to interpret some of that information. So
yeah, they have a certificate program. I think it's, takes like 3 months to become certificated in Google Analytics. So
yeah, so by default, I start out with Plausible Analytics. That's the analytics program, and if they need Google Analytics, I go ahead and install that. That's how I manage clients with that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we use SEMrush to interpret Google Analytics. So all the reports that we send out are from SEMrush because they're 1,000 times easier to read than Google Analytics. But even so, usually people's first office hour we spend going through, this is what this means, and this is what all these numbers are, and this is what all these charts are in SEMrush. So it's still a learning curve.
One of the things that Plausible hooks up to is Google Search Console, which is not an issue with privacy.
Yeah.
Like analytics is. And then you can pull in all the keyword data off of that into Plausible, and you can get, your traffic sources and all that. So you're not giving up as much as you would think, but like you had said, if people want to do digital advertising, then, well, maybe they want to stick with Google Analytics.
Right.
And it's possible to even run both analytics programs at the same time.
Yeah. I have not seen any decrease in traffic or anything else. When a website puts up, that little banner that says accept all cookies and things like that. Some of our clients have chosen that option, and it's. I recommend it if they're using digital marketing or Google Ads or anything like that, just to protect them and also to let people know that they're setting a cookie. But I have not seen much decrease in traffic on the ones after we put up that little barricade. I don't know if you have any other experience with folks, or
From a user standpoint, I find them a little annoying because I'm on the internet day in, day out. I'm like, yeah, I know it's a cookie. I know I'm being tracked, but not everyone does.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of Plausible is you don't have to put that up.
Yeah.
And declare it, because it's just, you're not collecting, here's the amount of data that Google Analytics does. So that's another benefit if you want a nice, clean website.
Yeah. I think aviation is such a small population, though, that a lot of the folks that come to our website have been there before. And so if they've accepted cookies once, they will never see that again. So for me, and, Gene, this might be true for you as well. And we haven't done this with you. This is something we probably ought to, because things have changed since we last updated your website. And that is that those laws and rules about privacy. A lot of folks are setting up cookies to let people know we have Google Analytics on your website and you're going to be tracked. And a lot of your website visitors are also returning. So, maybe that's something we should do for you.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you're right, because I don't see anything on here that says, welcome to the website. Yes, we're looking after you.
All right. Yeah, so it would just be like a little half or third of the page, that says accept cookies. You've probably seen them on other sites.
100 times a day.
Yeah. Do you find them annoying, or do you click accept usually, or what's your?
No, I just expect it, and I'm a simple guy, so I'm the one that read the article that says the best thing you can do for yourself is to clear out your Google history once a week. So I do that once a week. I clear out my Google history, and of course that means I have to remember my passwords next time.
Yeah, and then you get those accept cookies things again.
Yeah, it's part of life.
Oh yeah.
Well, I do it differently. I use Firefox.
Brave or
Firefox.
Yeah.
In either case, I can go in and be very specific about a given website and say, nah, I don't want that. And okay, for this time, but then I delete that only, so I keep my passwords intact. You can be selective about what you do delete and what you don't.
I'm gonna look into that, because that's interesting. I don't know if I even have that option on Google.
You do. It's not Google thing. It's a website. I mean, it's a browser thing.
Oh, right.
And I use Firefox or Brave, sometimes DuckDuckGo, but.
Yeah. And DuckDuckGo is a search engine that you'd use on Brave, so yeah.
Right. I am on my website, and I noticed that we're going to update that picture. I don't know who that young guy is.
Right. It's a constant battle to keep pictures updated. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, some of the data that people are talking about in other marketing worlds, they're saying that 44% of marketers are going to have to significantly increase their spending to achieve the same results because of the cookie change. I've not seen that in aviation at all. People are just accepting cookies. And I think it could be because we have higher value content than other people. We have such a small community. We trust each other. It's like a gated community, in the aviation industry. I don't know what to attribute that to, but.
So when somebody goes to my website, do they just assume that they're being tracked with cookies, or because I don't have a statement on there, they're not being tracked?
They are being tracked because we do have Google Analytics on your website. So technically, legally, if we should put that up.
So
Yeah, I don't look good behind bars.
Right?
okay.
Okay.
Does he have that GDPR thing on there?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
he's got Termageddon on it.
So they can request the data be erased, and he can do that.
Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's all. I have not seen any case law of anybody actually getting sued for this. I don't know if you have, John.
It's mainly the large companies at this point and this kind of bleeds into accessibility as well.
Yeah.
It's generally the large companies, the small mom and pop who may have a few $1,000s laying around or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a juicy target. So it's right now it's the big companies that really have to watch out.
Yeah.
Deep pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine are not.
Big juicy pockets. Okay. Right. Okay. And yeah, just to kind of continue that conversation, Termageddon, something that we have recommended, I think, for a year and a half now, maybe longer than that.
Yes. So
and it's on every site of all of our clients, right?
No, not all of them. Some of them have not chosen to do that, but
wow.
We do recommend it to everyone.
Yeah.
And they do have a new cookie consent option. I haven't delved greatly into it because I've been pointing my clients to Plausible at this point.
Yeah.
So it's something that's on my list to do very soon here. Of course, I also use Termageddon on all my clients. So.
Right. That's how we're managing it for our other clients, is the cookie consent from Termageddon. So, but that started back, and people listening to this may not know what GDPR is. It's basically the privacy laws in Europe, and there are similar privacy laws in California and a few other states that require. It's kind of the right to be forgotten is kind of one of the layman's terms for that, and that is you have to have a link on your website where people can actually click on that and say, forget all my data. And then you have to have some mechanism, whether it's manual or otherwise, whereby you delete all that person's data from your email lists and your cookies and everything else, and digital marketing software and everything else. And Termageddon makes that easier.
Or for general information, GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation from Europe.
Right. Exactly. So that I think is another thing that's changed in the last little while.
John, is there a compliance date on that?
On Termageddon, or okay. GDPR is actively in effect, and there's new privacy regulations that are constantly being put up for votes in different states. Right now, the federal government has not made much moves, and so individual states such as California have been going it alone. And so now there's a patchwork of laws that is tough to navigate and stay compliant. And that's where Termageddon really helps, is you answer a bunch of questions, and they automatically update those terms of service based upon new regulations and laws that go into effect in states and countries.
Right.
And if there's an action needed, Termageddon will email you saying, hey, we need to collect a little bit more information about how you use this data, and you go in and fill that out, that additional data out. If there's something that pops up in privacy laws that go into effect. Right.
I actually did have one lady call me from Europe, and because we've been sending email forever, and we've been sending email to everybody forever, and this lady, said, how did you get my email? How did you get my information? I want to know how you got it. And I happened to have it because I put notes and tags in my CRM, and she had actually given me a business card like 6 years ago at an NBAA conference. And I put that in as a tag, 2016 or, whatever, NBAA card, And so I told her that, and I said, we actually met. Now that I refreshed my memory, I never would have remembered that. But, and you handed me a card 6 years ago at an event. And, then all of a sudden she calmed right the heck down, and she actually is considering purchasing our services. But prior to that, she was really, really, what is the word? Incensed that, we had collected her data. And, so I'm not really, that's the only incidents that I've ever had, with something like that. People occasionally unsubscribe or report spam on our emails. But I have never had anybody, that's the only experience that I've had cause for concern. But, of course, that whole GDPR thing is going through my mind going, $1,000 a day or whatever the fine is in some of these European countries for collecting data against somebody's without consent. So it's just better to be safe than sorry, I think, and things.
Boy, that's pretty interesting that she gave it to you personally, so she couldn't complain.
Right. And, I told her, yeah, now that you handed me a card in 2016, I'm going, okay, I think I remember you. You were wearing, I think she was wearing like a purple dress or something. And, I never would have remembered that without the notes. But anyway, just one of those things where if you can do that with software, it's 1,000 times easier. But I've become even more obsessive and compulsive about documenting things and I know you are too, Gene, and you as well, John, because you're in this business. But yeah.
Is this a plugin?
Termageddon is a
it's a code snippet that you put on the website. So it's not a traditional plugin. It's just a piece of code that contacts Termageddon servers. It's basically Termageddon's page is stored on their servers, and it's plugged right into a page on your website.
Right. And
so it's always got the latest stuff. Whenever they update, it's right there.
Yeah, they update your privacy policy on your website to include everything that's legally required in a privacy policy. Because otherwise, all I would be doing and all John would be doing is updating privacy policies once a week, we'd be updating privacy policies.
We'd probably be spending $1,000 a month in lawyer fees just for someone to keep track of everything too, and then all the man hours of inputting everything. It'd be nuts.
Yeah.
So are we to assume that all of the websites in Europe comply with this? Or is that being brave?
That's probably, assuming that everybody in Europe is complying with any law is probably, people jaywalk.
Yes, I know.
Right. And I'm pretty sure there's a ton of websites that aren't in compliance. So.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you recall, the assumption in Europe is that you can't do anything unless you're authorized to do it. The assumption in the US is you can do anything unless you're told not to.
Unless there's a law prohibiting it, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
The different legal framework altogether.
So I would assume that everything over there is, unless somebody, overlooked it, in which case somebody's going to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's mom and pops that just, have never considered it, in Europe and everywhere else in the world. And that would just be a negligence thing, but like John said, I don't think anybody's going after anybody that doesn't have big pockets. At least I've not heard about that, but still better safe than sorry. Another big topic from that Forbes article that I thought was a good one is voice search and AI driven search, and web technology and how it manages that. And a lot of that is not really even technology. It's just, is your website constructed well and organized well and laid out properly and accessible and all of those things that we always talk about. And another thing that we found, as far as the voice search goes, are your titles on your, titles and subtitles, are they questions? And then you answer the question in, that you asked in the title. That really helps with voice search statistics and things like that.
So you say, are they questions, not just are the words question, but is there a question mark at the end of it?
Is it formatted as a question and answer? Because things that are formatted as a question and answer are super easy for Siri or Alexa or whomever.
Unless you don't put the question mark at the end of it.
Right. So
it's a statement.
If it's formatted as a question, then it's really easy for Siri to say, here's an answer to your question. I found it on the web.
Easier. But again, without the grammatical inferences, it'll foul up AI.
Right. So all of the websites that we've worked on in the last, 6 months maybe, we're trying to use that as a principle of, that question and answer format so that it's easily voice searched and easily AI searched.
Yeah, and that would be like one example would be like a FAQ page, a frequently asked question page, and that's kind of where um, a good copywriter and you participating in coming up and answering the questions, and then having someone that is knowledgeable in marking up the page with code, saying this is a question and this is the answer to that question, and so that it allows Google and other search engines to find those questions and answers and maybe display it at the top of Google search results. You might ask, what time of day or when is sunset today? And you come up with a little graphic at the top that says the sunset is at 9:08 this evening. So that's just a special little box of information that Google provides. Well, Google also shows questions and answers to common things. And so if you can win a spot up at the top, it's called the knowledge panel, and you get a lot of visibility for your business. So the important thing is that you're working with the copywriter and the web developer to pull that off.
Right, and make that super easy to see. Another thing that we've seen a lot more of, I think, over the last few websites is mixed media. Everybody wants video, and I know, like the Wings of the North video that you guys produced recently. The video really puts that website over the top, I think. It's very high quality video. It's embedded very well in the website, and that really, of course, websites are built for visitors, not just for search engines. So, that really sends it over the top. And then the search engines are now parsing videos in a lot of cases, especially if they're embedded from YouTube or somewhere where they have subtitles and other things, where those are indexed better than they used to be.
Yeah, back in the early 2000s, there's such a thing as keyword stuffing. And so they would literally put a whole bunch of HTML text and then turn that text white. So it fades the background. And visitors are none the wiser of those keywords that are hidden, but search engines will see all those keywords, and all of a sudden you can pop up, pop that page up in the rankings in the search results. But that was gaming the system, and Google has since put a stop to that. And as their algorithms get better, if you can write for the person, and the person is really happy with what's the contents of that page, Google will reward you. And if you can mark it up properly so that search engines can get a little more of a leg up on what that content is about, like frequently asked questions, the question and answer, that's called schema. And so if you can give that little extra nudge and help to Google, sometimes that whole combination of copywriting and good web developer um, can do wonders.
Another thing that they talk about are basically micro targeting things like hybrid events and things like that, like CES. If you look at their website, typically if you go to a CES event, that's like Consumer Electronics Expo, there are QR codes on everything. There is nothing there that doesn't have a QR code on it. And every one of those QR codes pretty much goes to a specific page that is about that event and about that product. And, here's the deal that's available for the next 24 hours and things like that. And that really depends on being able to edit a website quickly and cheaply. Which kind of goes to some of the builders that we've been talking about. And you sent me that video yesterday about that website builder that's kind of next generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the builders nowadays, they're very popular. That's meant for more web designers where you're working on a page by page basis.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, if you back up a little bit and create templates for pages, and then you can fill in the title, maybe the featured image, description about the product, maybe the price of the product, or whatever is required. Example would be a new aircraft listing.
Yeah.
Being able to fill in um, um, how many hours are on the airframe, how many hours are on the engine total time, total since major overhaul, all of that information. If you can create all those custom fields on the back end, where you can just pop in those little bits of text on the front end, it can be programmed to display that information in a formatted manner. And the benefit there as well is you can keep pages looking super consistent.
Yeah.
And also, if in the future you want to change the layout a little bit, well, since those are custom fields and data is entered on the back end rather than on each individual page,
Mm-hmm.
you can just move those. As a web developer, I can move those fields around and create a new look without having to go in and edit each and every page.
Right.
So, you keep brand consistency. Going forward, it's easy to manage and update and change the look and feel of the site if something is, if it's needed.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially for some of those things where, maybe you have a temporary show or something like that, and you want to say, I want all of these products to be 20% off as a special for Sun and Fun or whatever. And then you can put a Sun and Fun header. You can, put a timer. You can do all kinds of things on those particular products. And then after that timer expires, it goes right back to what it was before in your catalog.
Yeah.
And unless somebody had that QR code, they're not going to see it on special. So that gives you a whole lot of marketing tools in your quiver, or arrows in your quiver, I guess, if we're not going to be mixing metaphors, that really help you make really good business decisions really quickly. And that wasn't possible 5 or 10 years ago. You just have to have people doing data entry for weeks before a show and weeks after the show to clean up after it.
Or if it was possible, you'd be spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000
Mm-hmm.
on a very custom design, very much custom design website that is hand coded and all the custom fields are coded. And nowadays it's much easier to do some of those customizations. Well, I mentioned about accessibility, and everything is interconnected with accessibility. The more I learn, I thought, well, okay, let's throw a few attributes on these HTML elements and call it good. But no, it's you have to have a good copywriter, a good strong branding, the colors that you select for the website, have readable font, make sure the font is big enough, make sure you don't put the font on a dark font on too dark of a background.
Yeah.
There's so many considerations that goes into making a website accessible. And not only is that beneficial to people that maybe have poor eyesight, but it's also beneficial to search engines.
Yeah.
So, you're not only talking or making it easy for blind people or low vision people to view your page, but also it's helping with your SEO.
Right. And a lot of the things that you do for accessibility also work, on the small screens too. So some of our flight schools have maybe 80% of their website traffic is mobile, which is a big surprise. And that's, changed over the last few years. Most of the people that are in their demographic or their target market are younger folks, and they spend more time on their phones than they do on computers by a long shot. So, it's really important to make sure that pages are accessible and things for that reason, and mobile friendly, which is
Yeah.
related, right,
Yeah.
to accessibility.
And that's in the web development space, that's called responsive web design. So instead of developing multiple pages for different device sizes, you can cause, 3 columns wide page to collapse to 1 column on mobile. And so you're not wasting money on developing multiple versions, and you have to upkeep all that, and each individual make sure everything's in sync.
Yeah.
And now with responsive web design, it's possible to serve a wide variety of device sizes.
Right. So, and I'm not sure whether it would be considered responsive or accessible, but, for a lot of the news sites and things like that, they have the little button where you can increase the font size on your phone. I will admit to using that sometimes, and it makes it a whole lot easier to read. So, if your website can accommodate that, then people are a lot more likely to spend more time on your website, rather than picking up the phone and calling you or going to a competitor's site. Because it's easier to read. So that's very important.
I may be getting into a little bit of the weeds here, but
that's cool.
Like font size, the font sizes that you select in browsers and on pages, you're probably most familiar with pixels.
Yeah.
And that's a static size. And in order to make it accessible and responsive and all that, ideally you make it based upon a percentage.
Yeah.
So let's say you're on a device width that's, mobile size, maybe you want it scaled down to 14 pixels so that the font isn't super big and you have only one word on each line. That's been a challenge in the past to deal with. But when you start using these new measurements for fonts, it's possible to scale that much better. I'll put it that way. So
one last topic, and then I was going to circle back to the difference between some of the free and cheap website builders versus professional web design. And usually that has to do with all of these things. But the last one I wanted to talk about before I go into that was security. And you and I have talked about, since things have been happening in Europe, you and I both work with people in Russia and or Ukraine, and things like that. And, there has been a lot of activity on the web among different groups of developers and things like that are building robots, and it's nothing personal. It's not like they're going to go out of their way to hack your site, but a lot of sites are getting compromised because of various bad actors running around, trying to break into things and or disrupt the internet. So, there are things that we're doing to make sure that we're keeping our clients' sites safe, one of which is updating everything practically twice a week. And you and I keep sharing information about things that we find out that we need to change about sites, and this one is at risk because of this, and we need to come up with an alternative for that, and all of those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I pay attention to RSS feeds
Mm-hmm.
For reports of security vulnerabilities
Mm-hmm.
and plugins, and so once I see something that I know we use on sites, I go in and update as soon as possible. And that would be outside of the regular routine updates that we do. And it used to be where I would for sure do it at least once a month, if not twice a month. And now with current world happenings, I've been for sure getting it once a week, like
Yeah.
Paula said, and it's very important. And having someone be able to go in and fix something if something breaks along the way of the update is very beneficial.
Right.
And that's kind of the reason why I used to only do updates, less frequent updates, is
Yeah.
because you could be super detailed on making sure everything works.
Yeah.
And so that was, a past era. Now we're in a heightened sense of watching out for security threats and all that. So
Right. Your website people are at DEFCON 3 or whatever we are.
Mhm.
Right. And John, you put a whole list of things in Circle yesterday about ways to keep things safe. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, but
Well, no, I mean, it's just a consolidation of things I've been reading.
yeah.
And basically, you need to update everything as soon as there's one out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's just a start. I mean, we could go into an hour's worth of discussion on security.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's all pretty basic from a consumer point of view, but from a web developer point of view, there's a lot more to it than that. So I'm really happy that we have you watching those feeds, and we're watching hopefully different feeds so that we're getting a different view of different things going on. I think the biggest change that I've seen between, and people ask me all the time, what is the difference between going to Wix or One-on-One My Website or one of those free or cheap website builders versus having professionals build and maintain your website. The biggest thing I think is that when you use one of those builders, it's kind of frozen in time, with the technology of the day that you built it. And also, it's fairly restrictive in terms of what you can and can't do to protect your site, to update your site, to do some of these things that we've been talking about today.
And to make it searchable.
Right. And so then if you want to change any of these things that we're talking about, you have to go back and redo the whole thing. And I know you and I have both jailbreaked a lot of those cheap and free websites, where we've had to basically import the data into a modern technology and go from there.
And a lot of these builders, these Squarespaces,
Yeah.
it's next to impossible to do more of the advanced SEO stuff like frequently asked questions, schema markup, so you appear hopefully, cross your fingers, at the top of Google search in that special knowledge panel.
Yeah, that's true. And the things like voice search, things like security, the things like GDPR compliance, all of that stuff is just about impossible to do on an old site. So that's a problem with a lot of those old sites. And it ends up being not cost effective if you have to redesign and rebuild your site every year or every 2 years. Whereas in when you have a professional firm maintaining your site, we can usually make small tweaks that take an hour once every couple of months, and you're in compliance with GDPR, you have an FAQ that's formatted, you have other things done that we can't just go into one of those Squarespace sites and do. And we've done, I'm guilty as well. If you're doing a website for an event that's only going to last 6 months, you've got a little league team that needs a website for the season, things like that, then those Squarespace sites make sense. Or, for a wedding or whatever, those are cool. But if you're running a business from a website, then I think you really do want to be serious about the investment and consider some of these things that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think the difference is if you're like a church or something like that you need the community to jump on and look at when is the next service, or when is the next community function and all that. Well, a website builder like Squarespace might be, a cheap option because people already know about that organization, so they know the website URL.
Yeah.
And so they can just type it in and go direct.
Yeah, and nobody's going to sue a
yeah.
church for not violating GDPR. I mean,
yep.
I hope not anyway.
It'd be kind of a bad look.
No.
Yeah. So the idea of a website as well for business is to get found, through Google search. And so if you cannot leverage formatting of page elements and SEO and good copywriting, it's tough to get those website builders to rank well, like Squarespace.
Right, exactly. That is absolutely true. Did you want to share something? Is that?
That wasn't me.
That wasn't me. Okay, cool. We will edit this, so it'll be fine. Anyway.
At what age does a website become frozen in time? Right? Have we had a significant change in the last 18 months or 24 months that says, hey, it's time to come in here and rethink about the age of the website and what we can do differently today? Where's that spot?
At this point, WordPress is dynamic and is constantly being updated. And if you pick a good theme, it's constantly being updated and new features are added. Where it does come out of date, possibly, is maybe the design is old. Maybe you need to update the branding a bit. Maybe refresh the logo or something, or maybe refresh the copywriting. Maybe you're not ranking for a keyword that you used to, or maybe you want to rank for a new keyword. Maybe you want to create new pages to target those keywords. So it's setting a good foundation that you can build off of for years to come. Would be a main benefit for going with a professional.
Okay, so that answers the question. As long as it's not something you did in Notepad, or I can't remember what that program was that I used before WordPress. It's that long ago. But as long as it's dynamic and it's a continuously updated program by the manufacturer of that program.
Yeah, and also the individual as marketing needs change and stuff.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
To that end, I know that we've changed some keywords within the past month, and they've made a huge difference in some things. So it's nice to be able to just go do that rather than redo the whole website.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is absolutely true. And to be honest, Gene, I think it also depends on, the technology. So, if you were to build a website in Squarespace or one-on-one my website or something along those lines, and then the law were to change and say we're no longer allowing cookies, or whatever the situation is, it's harder to make those edits. So it becomes out of date much quicker than if we just do WordPress and then, we're just able to update it with a plugin and those kinds of things. So it's which is exactly what John just said. I'm just saying it differently.
Yeah. I'd be remiss to say, to mention that WordPress has over 40% of the websites online today are WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's by far most popular platform for building websites.
Yeah.
That's down. It used to be 70%.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, that's a consideration that a lot of people don't have is, you look for the best technology to build your website in, but you also want to consider what is going to be the best to update in the future, and what can I find people who will have a skill set in that technology. So, some things like Drupal and other things that, people choose for a reason because it has X feature or the Y feature. But then they get into trouble because 3 years later, 5 years later, whatever, the person that built their website, they're no longer in a relationship with, or they can't find that person, because they got lost in the pandemic or whatever. And then we end up having to pretty much recreate their website from scratch because it was built in a technology that they no longer have access to, or have access to people who have that skill set. So that's another consideration.
Which is what you folks did for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We jailbreaked yours, I think, or jailbroke, I guess. I'm not sure if that has a past tense of jailbreak, but.
in the case of Drupal, I believe it's under 10% of the market share.
Yeah.
Drupal has, I think it's probably around 5 or 6% at this
Mhm.
point, and all the other major website builders are 2, 3, 4, 5%, somewhere in there. And then the rest of websites online are often custom coded. You spend a couple $100,000 on a website, hand coded, fully custom.
Right.
So WordPress is kind of a nice sweet spot between DIY and professional.
Right.
We had a client once that had a $200,000 website that was beautiful,
Yeah.
but they never made a sale in it, and all the time they had it up because it wasn't done with respect to marketing and sales.
Well, and we couldn't do analytics on it. We couldn't update it. We couldn't do anything with it. It was all Flash. So that was many, many years ago. And they had spent so much money having custom video and everything else integrated into this beautiful, beautiful Flash website. And we saved as much as we could, because she did have some of the raw video and things like that. But it was pretty tragic, since she had spent so much money and, didn't know or care about the technology behind it. And I guess you shouldn't have to, other than the fact that you want to make sure that there's going to be a technology that's going to last a while. Flash became a security problem. Most browsers wouldn't support it. I'm not sure what year that happened, but the website became completely unsustainable and non-functional, and there was nothing to do but rebuild it from scratch. And that was tragic. That was probably the worst I've seen.
In the case of Flash,
Mhm.
Apple iOS, the iPhone, iPad, which is roughly 50% of the market share when it comes to mobile devices, they never supported Flash because it was a battery hog. It used a lot of juice to process those animations. And so that was when we moved over to HTML5 video, which is much more efficient. And so basically all websites support that video encoding technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
The interesting thing is, I'll bet this happens to a lot of us out here, is that we don't spend any time on our websites.
Right.
We do the day-to-day things that keeps the business going, and then I join in on a conversation like this, and I look at my website and go, "Gosh, that's really mine." Huh. Yeah. So no, it's almost like you need a monthly reminder on the calendar that says, "Hey, open your website. What's it look like today?"
Whoa. Sorry, Gene. Bye. Anyway, Paula Williams, ABCI, we help aviation companies sell more of their products and services.
John Williams, ABCI, and I do the back end stuff for security and CPA sort of stuff.
John Chvatal with Trinity Aviation Solutions. I look after your websites and help aviation businesses.